push the button. So everybody be on best behavior here.
Ugh.
I believe we're live. All right.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody. I want to call this February meeting of the Judge Foundry Board to order. First off, I want to thank everybody for your patience as we get started a little late here. As we're continuing to learn some of our tech tools, we'll continue to learn and work on that for some hopeful improvement. Our first item on our agenda today is approval of minutes. So for the board, does anyone have any correction to those minutes as proposed?
Just to confirm, we're only approving the November and December minutes, correct?
Correct. November and December. So does anybody have any, sorry, yeah, I should clarify that. Does anybody have any corrections to November or December for approval today? Okay, great. Those minutes are approved. And with that, I'm going to hand things over to, oh, sorry, I skipped the welcome and all the fun stuff. I want just a couple of quick announcements before we get started. We have had our first wave of merch sales. It just closed. Most of the stuff is already at Rob's house, just waiting to get shipped out this weekend. So we're really excited about that. We saw some really cool pins and things this last weekend as a preview. That's really exciting. The Murders at Karlov Manor update quiz has launched. 95 judges have already taken that. So if you haven't done so, it's a great chance to brush up on your skills with the new set.
Our membership numbers
continue to climb, and we'll get an update on that shortly.
And
then also just a huge thank you. We're really grateful for all the positive support and positive feedback we've been hearing from our members. We've been to several events recently and had so much enthusiasm, and we really appreciate that. And we can't wait to share with you some of what we've got coming up. With that, I'm going to hand things over to Joe, who's going to give us a membership update.
So the membership update for this month is that we have 685 total members with 530 certified judges. That's a bit of a gap, and we believe there's a lot of judges that have judge levels that don't appear correct in judge apps. So we want to encourage those people to fill out the form on judge apps to get their level transferred over from Judge Academy or the historical judge program or whatever they need to do. I'll post that link in our Discord and a couple other places, so you can click on that. That's the membership update for February.
Thanks, Joe.
From there, we'll move to John Bryan.
Yeah. So as of 2 days ago, we had total balance in our accounts of $6,721.35. Revenue for last month was $5,906. Of that, about $2,700 came from dues and about $3,100 from merch sales. We had about $625 in expenses last month. We expect that this for the next report, we'll be looking at a lot more merch sales and some of the expenses for actually buying that merch. And I expect our balance at the end of next month to be somewhere around $8,000.
Thank you, John Bryan. Next up, we are going to do our Q&A, and Matt has agreed to lead that and ask us the questions that you have submitted via the forum. So I'll hand that over to Matt.
All right, thank you. Our first question from Jonah Kelman. What is Judge Foundry doing to make it so that their levels are meaningful to tournament organizers? What relationship and communication does the board have with the larger TOs, such as Cool Stuff, Laughing Dragon, NRG, SCG, F2F, Pastimes, etc., particularly regarding what those TOs need and want out of a certifying body?
Yeah, so I have the answer for this one. We're in contact with the major TOs in the US and Canada, but with varying degrees of contact and closeness. I'm going to keep this a little vague because some of the conversation we have are different levels of confidential, and we want to keep having conversations with all of them so they can be candid with us. One advantage of our board, all being pretty active traveling judges, is that we have relationships with folks who work for these TOs and can have discussions with them quite often. We have a tough balancing act with regards to levels, since TOs have different needs. Some tournament organizers have all the info they need about more senior judges, and they really just need a meaningful L1 or L2 certification to show that the new judges that are applying are going to be effective at their events. Some TOs need those higher levels because they're regularly hiring head judges who they're not familiar with, or leads or other positions. TOs who only host a few shows a year are going to want different things from TOs who host a major event every month. All of them are going to have different needs than local game stores, and then we're also considering those local game stores. So there's not any system that we could design that would be ideal for anyone, but we're trying to balance the needs of those TOs also with the needs of our judges. Our levels were designed with feedback from the TOs, but also with feedback from judges, because judges are in a variety of situations, work different types of events, either work at the local game store only or only at large events, lots of different things. They want to have the levels be applicable to their different situations, but also feel like they're recognized for their progress and their achievements.
Okay, thank you for that. The next question from Michael Aerosmith. It seems that there's been a full stop on getting in-person conferences going by Judge Foundry. Is there a reason? When can we expect physical conferences to return to prominence more than the couple that have been organized by individuals?
Cool. Thanks for the question. I can take this one. The board members have been working on conferences in the background throughout February, but that has definitely been in the background, so I completely understand why it's any significant public-facing updates. So thank you for the question, for the opportunity to share some of that news. To be perfectly honest, some of our plans have been in progress, but they've been stymied by personal matters such as illness that are outside of our control. That being that, and I believe that we are on track for having the first official Judge Foundry conference or conferences sometime in Q2. So do keep an eye out for that. And I also want to mention that we envision the annual meeting in September as having elements of a large judge conference, in addition to the specific Judge Foundry affairs like elections. So please keep an eye out for that. I hope you're excited for that. We're very excited to share more news about that as it develops further. I'll also take a second to plug that if anyone listening to this is interested in conferences or judge gatherings or anything of that nature, please reach out to us. You can contact us via email at board@judgefoundry.org, and we'd be really excited to chat with you. And if you're interested, to add you to our Judge Conferences project on Judge Apps.
Okay. The next question from Peter Davies. Will we ever see a return of judge foils in the future?
I'll take this one. I can't speak to ever because I don't have a crystal ball. And while I know that we'd all like to see foils come back, that's really up to Wizards to decide if they want to print foils again. And we don't know of any plans that they're going to do that. So as far as a Judge Foundry position, we're really setting ourselves up to not depend on those foils to operate. So while foils would be great, we just aren't counting on them.
All right. The next question from Dan Milovitz. Just wondering when maintenance is happening and how it's going to be implemented.
Yeah, so maintenance has been on my mind too, Dan. Mostly because I've been getting the last few loyalty points required to requalify for status of my airline, and I would like our process for maintenance not to be quite as painful as American Airlines. Judgeable maintenance is an annual process. We decided to have it happen in the spring, so it offsets our annual meeting. Per the bylaws, which you'll find on our website, the first maintenance pass is going to be April 1st, 2025. I am now saying that out loud and considering maybe we should have done it on April Fool's Day, but here we are. We decided to skip it for our first partial year so we can give judges plenty of time to meet the requirements after learning about them. You're essentially going to have a full year starting in April, and we will likely count back since the beginning of Judge Foundry just so that this first maintenance plan is a little generous. I've started writing an article that's going to post in a little over a month, probably on April 1st, 2024. That will go into more detail here. Until then, the policy documents on our website walk through the maintenance requirements for each level, and I suspect that these are going to be the requirements we have, and that you can work toward these for next spring.
Okay. The next question from Jonah Kilman has many parts, so let me get through all this. What is Judge Foundry doing to increase its reach to potential judges and improve accessibility to candidates who don't have a judge local to them? What are the board's plans if recruitment doesn't grow? And how is Judge Foundry planning to support local judges and make sure that their voices are heard when its structure and many of its members are generally disconnected from that aspect?
So this one should be on me. Sorry, I'm distracted by a cat a little bit here. So we knew that going to membership-based program was a mentorship-based program was going to create some holes like this. The judges might not have access to a mentor. This is a trade-off versus our goal of improving judge quality through mentorship, and it's tricky. It's a tricky problem to solve. In the last few months, we've promoted a number of level 3s, which helped build that out, and we've been working on getting them to promote more level 2s, which help build that out. This helps support prospective level 1 judges. This is going to take a while to spin up because of the nature of always starting down that we have. And it's a model that's going to build more skills and more community investment, we believe, and is going to set judges up for long-term success in terms of skills and knowledge. All that said, we're going to watch numbers. If our acquisition numbers aren't where we want to be, then we're going to have to make some adjustments, obviously. Supporting local judges, it's a big priority. We finished a lot of the critical infrastructure stuff, which had to happen first. It was the thing that had to come into place. We've got a bunch of initiatives that we're planning that we haven't put into place yet. We expect to make April LGS month, and we're going to roll out the first few of these initiatives. If you're an experienced LGS judge who's passionate, who wants to help develop this, we would love to help develop more store level judges, and we would love to get your feedback. Reach out to us, ship us a message on any of the channels that we use, and we can help use your help to get things figured out.
All right, thank you for that. And our last question from Brian Prilliman. Last meeting, I asked for each member to give a long and a short-term goal. What movement has there been on your short-term goals since the last meeting?
Oh, it's back to me to start on this. Merch was the thing that I said had to happen. It's mostly in hand. A couple items are still being produced and or shipped to me. Tokens and patches are the ones that are not in hand yet, that should be. If patches get delayed, it's possible because of physical production, then those will get shipped out separately, but because they're just envelopable, they're pretty cheap. The general merch shipment will go out. I'm packing it all this weekend, and it will go out early next week for everybody's merch stuff. So, yep.
So I guess that's me next. I am going to be really honest, and I have made none. I am just getting over my second bout of flu in 1 month and have spent most of the month sick. So I really apologize. My priority here is really to expand the team so that progress really isn't as dependent on just me to keep things rolling.
Yeah, so last month I noted that getting projects up and rolling was my short-term goal. We've made some progress as a group, but it's going a little more slowly than we'd like. Look for a couple announcements here early next month. We sort of had a traffic jam in terms of announcements at the tail end of this month. February had a lot of events. I know I personally was in SCG Hartford, into the IRC in Ottawa, into MagicCon Chicago, which is great to be able to talk to judges about Judge Foundry, but not so great to actually get my homework done after talking to them. And so, like I said, look for some announcements next week after. This is your official announcement of an incoming announcement.
Question, Brian. Just to recap, my short-term goal.
Oh, Paul, you Completely
Judge
cut out or
Foundry member.
roboted.
My big oh, can you guys hear me okay? Okay, well,
Yeah.
I'll just start over from the top. Thank you. So to recap, my short-term goal was to streamline information about how to become a Judge Foundry member. The big update I have is that I've had some conversations with prospective judges. We've been doing some research on people who have joined Judge Foundry, such as the 150 members without a judge level that Joe mentioned earlier. So we have a couple of ideas about where the problems might lie, and I've come up with plans for how to fix that starting in March. So pretty excited about that, and you'll see more updated progress soon.
So my two short-term goals, Rob already covered merch, is to get this merch order done and to work on our exam content. The level 3 exam has enough questions to support someone taking it twice now, which is a big milestone. I think we're moving forward with our exams quite well. And I want to remind everybody that the Markov Manor quiz is it's not out yet, right? I don't want to tell them wrong.
It's 100.
It's out?
100
Okay,
judges
it's
take
out.
It's live.
Yep.
Go take it.
Yep.
I will go take it then today because I missed that. Go take your update quizzes.
Thank you, Joe, and everybody for the answers, and thank you, Matt, for leading us through our Q&A today. Thank you for everybody who submitted questions. We appreciate your seeking information and holding us accountable. With that, we are going to move to new business, and actually that one's me. So our new business today, as you might have seen on the agenda, was the approval of the licensing agreement with Magic Judges South Africa. Because the contract we have with them has some potentially proprietary type information in it, we are actually going to handle that portion of the meeting in an executive session today. So that's going to be something new that will be at the end of the meeting and will not be aired. So just kind of high level, this contract is very similar to the one we discussed last meeting. This is a contract to license our exam content to the judges in South Africa, and we are very excited about that for a lot of those same reasons that we mentioned last meeting. This is really a way that we can help to enable and support these to support other programs where they might not have the membership capabilities to create those exams in-house. And so we are really excited about that. But we are going to move that into the executive session at the end of the meeting. So you'll hear more about that as we move into that portion. Which takes us to our next agenda item, which is an announcement that Bears has.
So we have a very exciting announcement today, which is that Judge Academy is coming out with a new merch kit, and they have very graciously decided to donate a portion of the sales from that merch kit to us, to Judge Foundry. So we're incredibly excited about this. We're very grateful to Tim Shields, the founder of Judge Academy, for thinking of us with this donation, for thinking of the judge community. We feel that Tim has been a friend of the judge community for many, many years, decades, literally. And it's hard to find the words to express our gratitude. So thank you very much, Tim. We're excited to be part of this partnership. We'll be sharing more details about this on our blog a bit later this week. Some really cool stuff in the merch kit, including some of your favorite Magic artists. So you'll have to stay tuned for that. So consider this an announcement of an announcement. But really the takeaway is thank you, Tim. Thank you, Judge Academy. Thank you for all the work you've done. And we're very excited for this donation.
A huge second to that thank you. Thanks, Bears. Next up on our agenda is Rob with showing off some merch items.
Rob, you're muted.
Rob, you're muted.
It remuted. I'm sorry. I have a bunch of stuff. So I'm going to show through a bunch of the items that are going out, starting with the hat because it was on top of my pile. Cool orange brim, actually really good embroidery. We had to and this is going to show up better on some of the other stuff. Our icon is two-tone, so it has an orange and a yellow. I don't know how clear that comes across on here. Which is going to make a lot of difference when we look at the polo here. So the polo that we have going out is a black and yellow. It's got yellow highlights on the sides, very big logo. This is the men's. The women's cut does not have buttons. The men's does. It's just the way that they made the cut of these. And the yellow is fairly close to the gold on this, so I think it comes across really well. And it has a bright yellow stripe on the back that makes you pretty visible from the back. The button-up shirt. So it came off my hanger there, sorry. The button-up shirt, it has the thing that I personally don't like, but it's the way that they all seem to come, which is with the embroidery above the pocket. So it's a standard pocketed. It is the Port Authority ones, if you're used to these from the old Judge shirts, fairly thin material. And we've gotten a sleeve imprint as well that shows off really well when you're walking around. It does not have a back
Rob,
imprint.
is there?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Rob, is there?
Yes, there is a ladies' cut on
that
this
one
as well. It goes up to wide sizes. I didn't pull one of those out. It isn't substantially different in terms of like I believe it has the pocket. I didn't check on the one that we have. I think that it's a pocketed one as well, though. If I remember correctly, putting me on the spot to actually remember things. We also manufactured vests. This is just for me because I wanted a vest. These are packable vests. So these are puffer vests, and they come with a bag that they pack down into, and they should pack down to something about the size of a deck box if you do that. So that way you can wear them off duty at events. And I don't know. This is just me wanting to make a vest because I wanted to make a vest. We also have a handful of small items. I have pens that we produced, and we gave these out. It's probably not going to come across very clear there. They are Judge Foundry branded. They're the Sharpie S Gel pens. We got these in and gave them out at MagicCon Chicago to a bunch of people, and they'll be on the next merch store wave as an available item. We have the Judge Foundry stickers that a number of people ordered. So the ones that people ordered are these ones. And then there's also a second sticker that exists as well that I'm going to get out to people. And we got big packs of these from Sticker Mule. So I will be distributing those through our merch sale stuff. And these are super nice vinyl stickers. They stick on things and stay on things really well. I actually have one on the back of my phone, and it hasn't gotten injured or anything yet. It's very nice. So that's stuff.
Hoodie?
Hoodie. I'm wearing my hoodie. It's right here. It's a pretty nice black hoodie. It's got a lined hood, and it's got the pockets. It comes in tall, which I think this might be the first tall hoodie I've ever owned. So it's taller than I've ever had as a hoodie. I didn't know that hoodies were supposed to go down as far as apparently they do. So, and that this is a nice huge imprint.
Rob?
Yep.
As a hoodie aficionado, do you know what brand that hoodie is?
Good question. I don't offhand. I could check my tag.
Fine,
I didn't think to answer to check this before I can give it to you offline. It's like when I can actually take off clothes instead of like making this very awkward. So.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you, Rob, for that update. I'm gonna jump script here for just a minute and just put in a personal announcement. I really wish I didn't have to say this, but please only put stickers on your own stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
They do not come off very easily. It is, yeah.
We do not support sticker vandalism. Okay, so moving on. Next up, we have a proposal coming from Brian Perlman. Special guest, Brian Perlman. For everyone, this is actually the last thing prior to our executive session.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. Thank you all. Thank you for having me. This is a double proposal for both a region definition and a proposal for regional leadership. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Brian Perliman. I am currently a level 3 Judge Foundry judge. I've been a judge for 14 years now, etc., bona fides, whatever. This right here, this is a proposal for you guys to consider. As I understand it, it will go up for review over the next month, and then possibly have changes or approved or go back to the drawing board or something like that next time. Call it for the people that helped me. For the region definition part and the methodology, that was Kyle Evans, Chris Kleinstuber, and Michael Hill. And any metrics that are in this chart are current as of 2/22, so 6 days ago. Okay. We're going to have a little bit of a background information. Then I'm going to pitch some regional definitions, and then I'm going to recommend one of them. And then I'm going to have a proposal for regional leadership roles and responsibilities. All right. This task came about. This was one that I kind of volunteered for because in various events and online, Judge Foundry members and people looking to become Judge Foundry members have basically looked at it and said, "Hey, what do I get out of this? Is there some sort of regional leadership? Is there something similar to regional coordinators of the old days? How are we going to support newer judges? I kind of want a regional identity." And so those were desires. And many judges, a lot of the judges, Judge Foundry has a lot of judges that are kind of old guard in the sense that they remember the regional cohesion provided by the legacy program. Additionally, Judge Foundry has just too many members at this point for the board to actually keep track of everything and keep track of all the problems actively. Okay, they need someone to like feed issues and concerns and ideas and stuff like that up to them. The reason why we did a definition of regions and regional leaders at the same time is because those two things need to inform each other. If you create a region, you need to make sure that there are enough judges in that region who could potentially be a regional leader, and you can't really select a regional leader until you know what region you're going to be leading. All right. So any questions before we move into the regions themselves? Yep. Okay, cool. So if people want to read what the purpose of a region is, that's great. There was a Judge Foundry desire to keep the total quantity of regions small, and I put that in quotes so that we could have physical regional conferences tied to that. We tried to respect that, but what we found was the regions were just too large geographically. So while we tried to honor that, we ended up kind of abandoning that that desire, since it was a desirement and not a requirement. This right here kind of informs how we looked at taking a region and creating it. This graphic over here on the side is kind of when we talk to people what their ideal region was. Their ideal region is my state or my province. And then one state over was okay, because people tend to think about traveling within the region, going to events within their region. And philosophically, everyone was like, my state is great. I might consider traveling one state over, but 2 states over is way too far. That's too much. And where that creates a problem is like in this state. So if you're in this yellow area, if your state happens to be here in this region, well, 2 states over is, if you're in this is fine region, 2 states over is if I have to region, or sorry, state. So we kind of looked at this and was like, the ideal region is really set up so that no one no one really should have to go drive across 2 states, and we used a medium-sized state for this. Obviously, like Rhode Island and Delaware and stuff like that are rather small. We wanted to minimize having to travel 2 states over. We wanted to make sure that there were multiple cities in a large cities in a region. We also wanted to identify regions where there was more than 20, or we want to try to create regions where there were more than 20 potential leaders. Okay, and for this purpose, we defined potential leaders as L2 plus judges. Also keep in mind that many with Judge Academy even through Judge Academy, a lot of legacy communication channels still persisted through. One other philosophy I say arbitrary with a purpose. There is no correct answer. Every time you put a state in one region, there is going to be some people that does not work for. Okay. There is no correct answer. There is no answer that's going to make everyone happy. So at least if you have a state in a particular region, have a reason for it as opposed to it was a coin flip. Okay. Also philosophically, we want to iterate and improve over time. Judge Foundry membership, just while we were collecting metrics on this, Judge Foundry membership changed and quantity of judges in particular regions modified so that we shifted things around. So there's really no expectation to think that judge membership is not going to continue to change, and some states are going to get, or providences are going to get more judges than others, and maybe we need to reassess, have a census and you know, I don't know, gerrymander your own regions. But philosophically, I think having about every 2 years, reassessing the regions and making sure that they have the right number of judges, have the right size, or serving the members is appropriate. Okay. This is, for reference, the legacy program. We had 10 regions. These are the region names, Canada, all of it. And this shows you with current Judge Foundry membership, the contents of those regions. And as you can see, we had 3 regions that were under 20 L2 plus judges. And 20 is, I'll say it's an informed arbitrary number. It's basically looking at 5% of judges want to be in a leadership position. So if you have 20, then presumably at least one of them will want to be there. So that's the legacy program. This is what it looked like with the US and Canada. And then for reference, this was Judge Academy. Judge Academy had 5 regions. You can see that they are rather large. Florida and New Mexico being in the same region is quite a stretch. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to get into proposal number 1. Proposal number 1 breaks down this particular way. As you can see, we have, these are the states. I've got a picture on the next slide so that you'll be able to consider that, but we broke Canada up into 2 regions. And you can see here, this is the number of judges in each, and I've got it highlighted in yellow where we fall below the 20 judges for L2 plus. Here is the breakdown pictorially. And then right here to talk about it, some of the pros and cons. We split Canada into East and West. That was one of the easiest things to do with the 4 of us talking. It was pretty much unanimous as to where to draw Canada. We attempted to group less dense regions. There are several regions here in the former, I think this was the former Plains region, and then in the South, and then over here, there were several pockets where there were less dense regions or less dense states of judges. So we kind of looked at trying to tie them together so that they didn't necessarily feel like tacked on or bolted on to another region. You know, it being like having, being like 2 states away from a central hub, you kind of felt like an outlier or an outsider. So we tried instead to kind of group them together. Every region here has at least 2 large city hubs. And they're Minneapolis and Kansas City with this Plains region. While it is 7 states, currently I believe like North Dakota doesn't have any judges in Judge Foundry. So instead we looked for just the population density. PA, Pennsylvania, that makes either region a super region. Like it basically pushes either the Mid-Atlantic or the Northeast into a 90 judge region just on Pennsylvania, depending on where it is. So it's effectively a swing state. Nearly everyone has at least one big city within a 1-state radius. And one of the things that we learned doing this, Colorado is just really awkward. There's really no good spot to put it. But in this particular case, it was centrally, it was the distance wise to the center of the cities in Texas and New Mexico. Sorry, we put Colorado in the region so that there was, I'm trying to remember the exact reason, but it was geographically, it allowed New Mexico to not quite be just dangling off by its lonesome, and there was enough pull there. Region proposal number 2. This one was attempting to solve the Colorado problem. Okay, we tried breaking up the regions a little bit more. We went from 11 regions to 13 regions to kind of spread things out. What we found was that it resulted in even more regions having less than the 20 L2 plus judges that we were looking for. So there's that. Here's what it looks like pictorially. You can see we have a lot more 4-state regions in the Texas and the Plains areas, the Great Lakes areas, the South, several more, but we also didn't have enough judges in the region. This is kind of, at least in my thinking, this is ultimately the ideal region setup once we get enough bodies to support it, but we're not there yet, nor do we know where we're going to get. Some rationale here, but it is even further from the Judge Foundry ideal in terms of region count. Again, just to highlight, there is no upside answer. Highlight the fact that regions don't need to be static. Judge population is going to change, do a reassessment. However, at this particular point in time, the recommendation is to go with proposal 1 as it minimizes, as it's a good mix between having small regions in terms of judges and large regions in terms of geography. Okay. All right. Any questions before we move on to the regional leadership stuff?
No, that makes a lot of sense. So is your proposal then the 2 years to happen with regional leadership changes or at the September board meeting? Like what would be your timing on that?
So what with terms of elections, so changes to regions would need to be, so right here I've got, so after the first year there's going to be a reassessment at the midpoint in terms. So basically before you have elections for regional leaders, which is the next section, you want to have the regions defined. Okay, so the goal is at the midpoint of the term, so the 6-month point into the terms, then you do an evaluation of how the regions are and if they are the right size, and then you draw up the lines to take place with the next election of the regional leaders, so that the people who are running for those positions of regional leaders know the regions that they're running for. You know,
and
so
one more question here. So Canada has never been split before.
Sure.
My understanding is there was a Canadian on
Yes.
the team, and that this is sort of the recommendation from the Canadians is to do the
Yes.
split. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, that was Michael Hill. What was funny is, so the way we started off this approach in the first place was as kind of a brainstorming exercise, was everybody make up your ideal region using whatever criteria you think is important, and then let's come together and explain why you chose what you did. And most of us actually, I think all of us came up with the same split for Canada with slightly different reasons. Some of the reasons were taking into account language. Some of the accounts were taking into account judge density. Some of the reasons were taking into account um, metropolitan locations. So basically, everyone kind of looking at it with their own different reasons came up with the same answer for Canada. And that's kind of how we felt that was a really good call. Like when everybody gets the same answer and they get it using different logic, great. That satisfies everybody.
Terrific. Yeah, no, I just want to make sure,
right.
And for Canadians who are watching and who read this proposal, please do give us your feedback. We want to make sure that this proposal works for you and that we're hearing you in terms of what works best for you and everybody really. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
So jumping back, both proposals have the Western Providence, the same split between the Western and the Eastern Providences. We can't subdivide that region up too much because then the regions start becoming too small to support themselves. But as that changes over time, sure, let's open it up.
Speaking of hearing,
All right.
Before you move on, speaking of hearing
Yes.
everybody, I was going to suggest that it might be good to open up a forum thread. I would probably separate it into the two separate topics. So we have one conversation go about the actual, like how the regions get split, and then a second on the topic you're about to continue on with. But I think that might be a good way to open up the discussion between now and the next meeting.
All right. Okay. So spend some time asking people, what do they want for their community? What do they want in regional leadership? And the three big ones were: we want someone to be able to provide a regional identity. We want judges to have someone to go to when they or point them in the right direction when they want mentorship, or they want to be hooked up with a judge or find another judge, or they want a TO. And they wanted a mechanism to handle bad behavior. Okay, so all three of these were the primary desires. And here I just have a list of regional leadership roles, kind of what the expectations of a regional leadership is. So there's the community desires, like the big three, and then just kind of more of a generic role of what we kind of want regional leaderships to do. We want them to foster growth. We want them to champion issues to the board. We want them to identify and act on areas of improvement. Be a point of contact if you need some particular information or you don't know how to do a thing. Be a cheerleader for that particular region. If there is a regional conference, while they don't have to necessarily organize it, we want to ensure that there's quality in those conferences so that the presenters are of a caliber that people want, 100 people want to come and travel across state lines to come see that person talk about. And we need to keep in mind, so the old RCs, they did a lot, but they also got paid. Okay. It's a lot easier to give someone a very long, complicated, detailed list of responsibilities when you're giving them several $1,000s a year. Okay. So this role is a volunteer role. So the expectation of it being regional coordinator like is not feasible. All right. Hey, it is not a regional coordinator. These are not regional coordinators. These are not area captains. They will have a similar hierarchical structure, as in you will have a person in a region doing things, and you will have a breakdown of other people underneath them doing things, which looks a whole lot like regional coordinators and area captains, but these are not them. RCs, they got paid. They had contracts with Wizards. They had access to foils that they could use to reward people and turn those foils into dollars for conferences, or turn those foils into people doing projects, or sometimes turn those foils into rent payment, because RCs had very little accountability with respect to what the execution of their responsibilities. So when I'm going to roll over the names, so I'm highlighting the fact that these are not regional coordinators, these are not area captains. They are going to have similar names because words like area and region, there's only so many words that mean area and region that don't sound terrible. And I have a feeling that the International Judge Program had the same thought process, because they also came up with the name Regional Advocate Independent. So the regional leadership is going to be a two-tier system, or the proposal is for a two-tier system: regional advocates and area communicators. The proposal for regional advocates are elected individuals. I say 13 months instead of 12 months because I very much dislike the idea of a regional advocate's term ending on, let's say, December 31st, and the new regional advocate, their role starting on January 1st, and there being no transition point whatsoever. So I wanted to build in a little bit of time of transition in a transfer of power, as it were, into the schedule. Their focus for the regional advocate, their focus is going to be on the region at large, addressing such questions as, is there enough L2s in the region to handle the demands? Do we have judges sniping at each other in public? Do the judges in my region feel that their work is being valued? And then coming to the board and saying, like, hey, this is a need of my region, or hey, this is a thing that you said that you would do that would really help my region, and it's not happening. So these are groups that, this is a group of individuals that will come to the board with initiatives that they think are being awesome, but also saying, hey, these are things and resources that we need. There will be one regional advocate per region. So where regional advocates are more big picture, looking at the region and talking to the board and kind of going up the chain, regional advocates are appointed roles that are going to focus more in the downward position of looking and making sure that judges of the region know where the information is, being someone that a L0 who's looking to become an L1 might be able to get a point or two as to someone to talk to or mentor. They're making sure that the channels are known by new judges. So when an L0 becomes an L1 and they ask, now
Can we say
what?
judge candidate,
The
please,
area
Brian? I apologize, but this is really one of the things I've tried to focus on.
Okay,
Thank
sure.
you.
Sure. So when a judge candidate becomes an L1 and they don't know where to go, then the area communicator can say, here's the channels where we talk, here's an onboarding document, here's someone that you can, or some folks that you can talk to about maybe getting some information, and here's where other judges in your area are. All right. And then a region can have multiple area communicators. All right, this here is kind of a list of what would be expected from a regional advocate. It's a bit of an eye chart in terms of the long list, so I'll pause for a second and let just highlight a few things. It's a consultant to the board of trustees. If they need help or want guidance on particular things, they're going to bring problems and issues to the board desires. This was an item: determine if exceptions to the testing or maintenance requirements as allowed can be done. Like, they're the people that are entrusted with being able to decide if exceptions are justified. Help conference organizers to ensure quality, provide information to people who are looking to get information about potential L4 and L5 candidates, and then serve as a mediator for disputes between in-region judges. Right. Things that the regional advocates are not. Scope creep is a potential thing, especially when judges are, air quotes, running for election. So this is kind of a definition what a regional coordinator is not. They're not a staffing organization for tournament organizers. You can help TOs find find judges for their RCQ, but the regional advocate position is not a staffing agency. They are not a disciplinarian. They don't have the ability to punish a judge. They are not responsible for testing or mentoring any specific judge. And this right here is mentorship, and this might be a little bit of my own bias, but mentorship is typically a relationship. Okay, it is something like it is a I like interacting with you, you like interacting with me. It is a little bit of a two-way street, and we can't necessarily force that kind of relationship on any one judge. So you can absolutely test and mentor people, but you are not required to form that relationship with any one specific judge. All right. Next, area communicators. This is kind of a list, and I will make that change on the last point, Mr. Baronet. But the purpose of the area communicator is to make sure that the information that is coming out, maybe here's where the release notes are. There's a new Murders of Karlov Manor. Our test is out. There's a new policy perspectives document. Hey, there's a board meeting this Wednesday. Making sure that that information is available in the communication channels. They do not have to moderate those communication channels. They just have to make sure that A, they exist. If they don't exist, they make them. And that the information is posted. They need to make sure that the region has a place for judges or TOs to find judges for small RCQs. That could be Judge Apps. It could be a Facebook group. Just it has to exist. Maintains a document for new judges, talking about where the channels are. You know, the conceptually that's like the old Welcome to L1 guides. Judge candidates looking to advance in areas where the suitable mentors in that area might be. All right. Things that area communicators are not. Basically all the same stuff as the regional advocates. With the added thing of, yes, they are responsible for making sure communication channels exist and that information is in those channels and shared in those channels, but they are not responsible for actually moderating them or creating their own if something already exists. All right. Elections and eligibility. Regional advocates, it's just popular vote. There is going to need to be a little bit of region locking just to make sure that there's not like brigading or people changing their region just to vote a buddy in. Elections will be held at the same time as board elections. Toyed around a little bit with staggering it about 6 months, but then that created a system of just perpetual elections, and that felt terrible. The term will start 1 month after the board term starts, and the reason for that was it felt like the potential of changing a lot of leadership in the program at the same time felt a little too chaotic. So by staggering things a month, that gives a little bit of cool down period. Again, I explained why the term is for 13 months. It's 12 months plus a 1 month turnover if another RA gets elected. For eligibility, this is You have to have lived in the region you are advocating for at least 30 days. You can't really be a good advocate. I cannot be a good advocate for California. Not employed by a major TO or serve as an independent contract staffing manager for a sizable event. What this is for is you are advocating for judges to the board. You are advocating for judge helping to build your region. And if you are employed by a TO, you might be looking to make things better for that TO. It also it eliminates any perception of conflicts of interest, and as you are mediating between judges, if there's a potential problem, one piece of feedback that we got when we were asking around is TOs really just kind of want to stay out of judge drama. Okay, so by having a person who decides whether or not you work be the person that you go to if you have a problem, seems like that might discourage people from going and talking to that person. Also, since part of the job of a regional advocate is to get in y'all's face about things maybe occasionally, we don't want the regional advocate to be a board of trustee member, okay, with the exception of if there is a period of transition point, because I realize that if the term starts 1 month after the board starts, there's going to be a month of rollover. And then, not a lawyer, but the board might have to have these regional advocates sign some sort of NDA or something like that if there's certain discussions. So you have to be able to enter into those NDAs that the board might require.
Question for you on this one, Pearl. So if the election is at the same time, I assume someone cannot run for both positions at once then?
That would be correct. We are not the Florida legislation. We will not grant exceptions, and we will require you to at least step down if you are trying to run for president instead of continuing to be governor.
I mean, I could actually see this is just me thinking off the top of my head, but I could actually see a scenario where if you had somebody running against you in both cases, you ran with the knowledge that you were going to only accept one of them. Like if I get on the board, then I'm going to turn down my seat as the regional advocate and to the second place. I don't know. I could see maybe their system's working. I haven't thought through it fully, but
yeah, and that's
I was going to say, I have the concern relative to this is you end up with a lot of regions and a lot of regional advocates as leadership, which then like peels people out of like potential board people away. So it makes it more difficult to find members for the board.
Okay.
I think that's a good discussion point. Does anybody have any other questions?
Is this your last slide, Brian?
I believe I have a few more, like a handful.
I'll hold my questions. I've written them down.
Okay. Okay, so area communicators, selection and eligibility. This is just appointed by the regional coordinator. Mostly the expectation is if you're already handling the communication in your particular area, then this is the expectation that the regional advisor will just say like, hey, keep doing that thing you're doing. Good job. Give you a thumbs up. Eligibility, this is
and by
any
that,
certified
I assume you
judge.
mean any Judge Foundry member?
Yes. Then I also believe with this setup, we're going to need 2 additional support roles. An election supervisor. This also could double serve for judge board of trustee elections, but we need another position to determine how elections are conducted, how the instructions are distributed, what what eligibility looks like, what the deadlines are, the auditing and the reporting of the results. Okay, so that role needs to exist. Okay. And then a regional coordinator. And this one is just a person that owns the definition of what a regional advisor is. Their job is to, as I say here, guard against scope creep, help RAs who are starting out their role in performing their task, ensuring that there's a clean transition. And then if after you've been providing some advice and some assistance, there's a regional advisor that is just not performing their duties, notify the board that there's a problem. And then that would lead into potential out of cycle elections. This is if an RA, a regional advisor, is no longer able to do their role or perform their duty. Maybe they are sick and need to take a break, or we have a regional advisor that is derelict in their duties for other reasons. The board can, via vote, force an out of cycle vote for a regional advisor. However, if that regional advisor, this is kind of like to make sure that the board can't just vote out or force a revote for someone that they don't like, that current regional advisor can still run in the out of cycle election. And if their region selects them again, well, the region has spoken. Democracy wins. And
so B-Pro, I know
yes.
you have to live in your region to be elected to it, but if you move out of your region, can you still serve? That is, can we have Gavin Dugan once again ruling Canada?
I had not
I
considered
don't know.
that. So that can be.
I don't know that we want to
thing.
use a specific name for referencing, but I think it's a good question.
Yeah, it's probably
Personally,
good.
I don't actually have an issue with them finishing out their term if they're not derelict.
Yeah, the fact that we'll have, like, realistically, since California and Hawaii are in the same region, okay, it's very possible that someone who has been familiar and has lived and breathed in the particular region is far away from their region. They could still fill that role until the end of the term. And if the board wanted to make a particular exception, like, hypothetically, if there were not enough people in the region that were interested in running, like no one wants to run, then yeah, I think, and that would be part of the election. The election supervisor would then have the ability to, for determining the candidate eligibility, waive the you have to live in a state or a province that is in your region requirement.
Yeah, I was going to say that region requirement there's a lot of edge cases with, like, a city on the edge of a region like Philadelphia, or Pennsylvania has this problem with Philadelphia and
Yes.
Pittsburgh, for instance.
Pittsburgh. Yep.
Yeah, I think there's other reasons for people to have very strong ties to a region that isn't necessarily the region that they're living in at the moment, for numbers of reasons that could be exceptions here. But I think that's another good discussion
desire
point for later.
is for someone to know that region well. If they spend a lot of time in that region, maybe they, spend 50% of their time in this other region. Okay, sure. We would just need to codify that. And then that's the last slide.
Great. So I think we've kind of asked questions as we were going. The sort of next step in this process is we're gonna share this PowerPoint and a write up sometime within the next week with membership, and then we'll have a couple forum threads on Judge Apps, and people can weigh in. And then at the next board meeting, we will take a vote.
Yeah, I do have.
Where's
sorry.
did you?
Questions
Oh, sorry.
actually as well.
Go ahead. Yeah, that's what I was going to.
Okay, sorry. Thanks. So one thing I was curious about is, philosophically, could you talk about why elections / what other forms of selection did you consider?
relatable skills to this particular role. But predominantly, there was a lot of success and there's been a lot of people who have been very, very happy that the Board of Trustees will be an election. And so this right here is kind of following in that footsteps of valuing you have a voice in how your region is run. Now, the negatives of having an election is obviously I talked about like campaigning, and why I put a slide as to what a regional advisor is not, because it's very easy to say for them to come in, for someone who's campaigning to say, I'm going to do all of these big promises and make all these promises and then turn it into a negative popularity contest. Like anything with a popular vote is kind of by definition a popularity contest. But someone who's coming in and making all these unrealistic promises in order to get votes, we kind of want a guidepost that says these are not actually their responsibilities in this role. So they're over promising or they're performing the scope creep, that kind of thing, to try and keep that in line and keep the baseline expectation and keep the regional advisor role to have a series of responsibilities that can be done by a volunteer as opposed to a full-time employee. Because if you remember what regional coordinators did, a lot of times it was 20, 30 hours of judge program work, regional coordinator work. And that ain't this. You know, this is much less.
Right.
And because it's much less lower stake, there doesn't need to be like this intense essay writing explanation thing and evaluation, like almost like a little mini panel of the L5s who are judging whether or not it's is good enough for someone to be a regional advisor. And if they don't do a good job, they get voted out next year. There's only so much damage that someone could do in this particular role.
Somewhere at home, someone is saying challenge accepted.
I have one other question here.
Sure.
One thing that we noticed a lot in the RC system was that there was always weird stuff. There was always a question about like can you be the RC of a region outside? Can you who's the RC of Guam? There's always exceptions to different kinds of things. Like what happens if somebody retires and it's pretty close to election and they just want to combine regions for a little while, or what if two regions want to share the same communicator or whatever? Is there a plan for a codified who can give exceptions to stuff?
So I would say if on the, and I stopped sharing, but I had the additional support role slide where I said there's an election supervisor that's appointed by the board that determines all the election stuff, and then there's a regional coordinator which owns the definition of regional advisor. Okay, and I would say that they're the person. That person would be the person that would determine if the regional advisor for like if that region is assigned to the region with California and it really should be mapped over to Washington, the region with Washington State, or granting an exception and having that region move to or that location move to another region, that would be the responsibility of the regional coordinator, whose job really is just to make sure that the regional advisors are all doing their jobs and to deal with any of the weird funkiness that comes up.
And Brian, I don't think you touched on how that would be appointed, but I would guess probably the same way we do like project leads.
The slide deck right now says both the election supervisor is appointed an appointed role by the board, and the regional coordinator would be an appointed role by the board.
Okay.
So
sorry, I missed that bullet.
that y'all would say, yea, verily, this person is the one that does it, and then that role could be whatever rule you use for project leads or whatever. You can do the same thing, and just y'all have the power to yoink that role from someone if they are not doing their job.
Cool.
Does anybody else have any?
I'll follow up with a couple of other things with you, Brian, in the forums. I'm excited for there to be a lot of discussion about this. In the interest of time, I'll just say one thing, which is that it would be great to have operations roles be considered in this structure as well. We have operations and bylaws. We're working on the event admin certifications, and I think we really want to be inclusive of them as well. So making sure that they are slotted into the system would be really exciting.
Okay, I can take that note.
Great. Thanks.
Seconded. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Brian, for presenting that. We can tell that y'all put a whole lot of excited for the discussion that's going to create.
And from streaming, we kept the same number of viewers the whole time, so I didn't lose people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you to everyone who stayed tuned to listen to the presentation. Okay, then as the last thing on our agenda, as we mentioned previously, we will be going into executive session to talk about the approval of the licensing agreement with Magic Judges South Africa. At the moment, that's our only topic of discussion for that. Does anyone have objections to moving to the executive session and inviting Matt Schaefer to join us for that portion of the meeting, which will not be streamed? Okay. Then with that, thank you everybody for joining us.